everyone. Welcome to another episode of BTS Live. We are still talking about loss and grief this month as well. And I have two lovely young ladies who are very special to me sitting with me today. Now, I will introduce them to you shortly. But what we're going to be discussing today is the grief associated with missed milestones or missed opportunities. And I know some of you are thinking, grief, missed milestones. What could Kadene be talking about? Anyways, we'll get into it shortly. I will introduce you to Kallysa Young, who is actually my daughter, and Kayla Cook, who is one of her best friends, and like one of my other daughters as well. So, welcome to BTS Live. I am Kadene Chambers. And just before we dive into it, Kallysa, tell us one word or sentence that comes to mind when you think about your last year of high school.
It would have to be surreal.
Surreal.
Yes, it feels like a movie.
All right. Kayla, what's one word or phrase that comes, or sentence that comes to your mind when you think of your last year in high school?
I'd say unfinished.
Unfinished. All right. So, viewers, can you take a gander at what we'll be talking about today? Their last year of high school was actually 2020. That's correct, the truth.
Yeah.
Right. 2020 feels almost like a lifetime ago at this point. But we're going to be talking more about that right here, right now. All right. So, welcome again to BTS Live.
Thank you for having me.
Us.
You are both most welcome. I should be the one thanking you for actually agreeing to sit down and have this chat with me today.
Of course. Why not? Why not?
All right. And because we're talking to my daughter and Kayla, two young ladies who are very close to me, it means that, some of the questions that we touch on may be a little for me, because we'll be talking about the different perspectives as well. So I'm taking you a little bit into my personal space again for this episode. We did that with episode 1, and we're doing it again today. All right, so both young ladies attended high school together. And just as the pandemic hit in 2020, I got real for us here in the US. They, of course, were one of the set of students whose lives would have been really properly, felt like it was upended.
Yeah.
So Kayla's word was unfinished to describe how her final year of high school felt, and Kallysa's word was surreal. So before we dive into you explaining to me what you mean before we move into the depth of the show, I want to highlight, let me share with our viewers. Milestones are accomplishments and celebrations of the progress of life and beginnings of new chapters. They bring people together and represent some of the most important points in individuals' lives. Times to look back on with fondness, pride, nostalgia. When the pandemic just started, and for many, many months after, these milestones were really robbed, taken away from many persons. So when we think about the students, all of the students were impacted, whether you were in basic school, we don't have basic, elementary, middle school, my Jamaican roots are showed, right? Whether you're in elementary or middle school or high school or college or university, it impacted everybody. The reality though is that if you were at that last year of school, any one of those, the impact for you would have been so much more severe, because everybody else got to go back the following year and kind of pick up some version of normalcy. But what the pandemic did for all final year students is take away something from them that they will never get back. But let me not steal the ladies' thunder. Kayla, tell me why you said your final year feels unfinished.
Kind of like how Kallysa said, it feels like a movie. Like, it feels like, everybody here in the States, you look forward to high school, the adventures, the next steps in life. You look forward to knowing that, after that senior year, that it awaits something else. But when you don't finish it, it leaves you kind of floating, like, what do I do now? Like, what's the next steps? Like, when I graduated, I had just gotten my first job, and I felt like so unsettled in life. Like, I didn't know. Sometimes I would feel like I was still in school, like I'm missing out on something. And some days I feel like I'm an adult and like it was going too fast, and I just couldn't. I felt like I was in the mix of both worlds, you know, like I was an adult but still a kid trying to figure out where to go. And then, you know, it was just hard. It was unfinished, like, literally.
I thank you for sharing that. And I'll highlight, you see, that some of the challenges that you just described is kind of normal for that stage of life that you guys were at, meaning you're on that cusp of becoming more of an adult. And there are adjustments that are required from you and from your parents and parent figures, right? That helps to ease you or take you into adulthood. So that in and of itself is a natural experience, but I know that everything feeling upended by what was happening regarding and just adjustments that everybody had to be making because of the pandemic made that worse. It exacerbated the situation. So I can only imagine what that felt like. So Kallysa, your word, surreal.
For me, it felt like we didn't get any closure. I didn't get any closure. You look forward to spending your final days with your friends in high school, going on trips, going out, you know, getting to hang out. We got none of that. It ended abruptly, and unless you were like close to certain people, you never saw your class again. It was the end. It was over. It felt like I was in a movie.
Every time when I think about it, my heart goes out to you guys. And you know, later on we'll talk some more about whether or not all of the parents and parent figures and families offered sufficient support, but we won't dive into that quite now. Grief is an intense feeling of loss and pain that arises from losing something or someone significant to you. And we're doing this loss and grief series because we don't talk about losses and the grief that comes with it often enough. Like, most people avoid uncomfortable conversations, and talking about losses, they're usually uncomfortable. So whether it's a loss of a loved one, or a missed opportunity, or material possessions, because I've highlighted that continuously throughout the series. If you lose all your possessions in a fire, listen, you're going to grieve. If you understand, if a natural disaster occurs, a hurricane, a tornado, and a fire, and you lose everything, you are going to grieve, right? People lose their pets, and listen, your pets become like your family members. They are, because you know they have their own personalities and that sort of thing as well, and that triggers grief. But too often we don't recognize that grief is not just about the death of loved ones. And this is why it is important that we're highlighting the different things that can trigger grief. So last month we talked about the grief that comes with retirement, and I'm happy that you ladies decided to sit with me for us to talk about the grief that comes from missed opportunities. Do you think that you felt grief? Would grief be a good way for describing, or did you realize that you were grieving?
Yes.
You realized?
It was so sad. It was so, and then because we were also in a pandemic at the same time, we couldn't grieve with our friends in person. Oh, you know, this is sad. No, it was over the phone. We sat in our houses all day long.
That sounds torturous.
It was traumatizing.
Oh man. So while everybody else in the world was also struggling with being in lockdown in those early months, and I prayed at that time for persons whose home lives weren't healthy or wasn't safe, because we didn't have to contend with that. But there are many persons who their home lives, you know, like leaving home is that escape that they need. And so my heart went out to anyone who was in such a situation. But so a lot of the times us as adults get caught up with what's going on with us, how we are suffering, you know, the experiences that we are having, that we don't process that it's impacting the young people around us in similar ways for us to have those conversations, because I'm thinking, I didn't really have that conversation with Kallysa, you know. I didn't, you know. So this is me holding myself accountable for that as well. What was that last question that you answered, Kallysa? Because I'm now asking Kayla.
If you realized that you were grieving, or
Um,
if it felt like you were grieving at the time.
it felt like I was grieving, but you know, when you were still in school, so it felt like we had just a lot to kind of juggle and process. I feel like I didn't think I was grieving until way later down the line when I realized, like,
We did nothing.
we did nothing. Like, we didn't finish anything. Like, now I'm in, you know, real people world as an adult, and I have to actually do this. I felt like so much missed opportunities, like, just,
So you were robbed.
yeah, literally.
All right.
Literally.
So we're talking about the impact of the pandemic on final year students when the pandemic just hit. So the last days in school, how did it come about? Because I remember one of the things that I know I asked her at some point, you know, what was going on, you know, she didn't tell the truth. I also wasn't being honest for me. Let me tell you, because I remember specifically talking to Kallysa at some point in 2020, earlier in the early days, and one of the things that she said to me about the whole experience was, we didn't even get to go back. We didn't get to say bye to our friends. Like, we left and we thought it was, yay, we're getting some extra days off, like I think everybody did, you know, only to now realize that, yeah, this is not extra, like, we're never going back, you know. So I remember her saying that to me, and at that moment, you know, it shifted the perspective for me. So tell us now in your own words, last days of school. What was that like? It was fun. All right.
So last days of school were in March. So we only had 2 more months left. We're getting to the end. We had all our dates for all our big important events.
Tell us what those big important events
We had
are.
grad bash, prom, graduation, a brunch. So we're like, okay, we're literally just having fun at this point with schoolwork, but still. And then when we spoke to like our supervisor, what do we call them? Vice principal. They would reassure us that no, they're still going to try for prom. No, we're not canceling. We're good. And then we were watching the news and we were hearing it's getting serious and they're closing down and they're like, no, we're still doing da-da-da. And then we left. We got 2 weeks. And I don't think it was until April that we actually heard that Grad Bash was cancelled.
Yeah.
So Grad Bash, do you remember when Grad Bash should have been?
It was supposed to be in April, like late April.
Yeah.
Okay, so for anybody who, because we're global,
Yeah.
so people in the US, I figure you all know what Grad Bash is, but we have persons outside of the US who are watching. Tell us what Grad Bash is, because it was a big deal. Ladies and gentlemen, it was a big deal for Kallysa.
It was a fashion show.
All right.
So, you can go.
So Grad Bash is basically just a class trip that like the senior class takes to basically celebrate, you know, working hard those 4 years of high school and showing off and just being able to have fun. Technically, your last year as a kid before you enter the real world, but we didn't get that. So
Our trip was supposed to be to, where were we going? Universal? We're going
Universal Studios.
Yeah, it was Universal, yeah.
And it's not just, we were going with multiple other high schools at the same. It was a huge, like, we're going to get a concert with artists and the park was open late for us. Stuff like that. Nothing. We got nothing.
Yeah, she was so sad. Like, so sad. And as a parent, it broke my heart. And it broke my heart because there is nothing that I could have done. You know, as a parent, you really want to, you want to protect your kids. You want to take care of them. You want to make sure, you want to just fix everything within reason, because I believe in being self-reliant, you know. I do. But she was hurting so much. And there was absolutely nothing that I could do. I remember trying to come up with suggestions about things that she could possibly do. She and her friends, I said, you want everybody to come over? Do you remember any other suggestions?
Yeah, you offered. I'm very friend oriented, yes. So most of them were, let your friends, let's do this with your friends, let's do that. It just wasn't the same.
Yeah. Because I was just thinking, Lord, at least if she hangs out with a group of the friends, that it would help. But now in retrospect and having the conversation, I realized just how empty just how far off the mark it would have been. There is no way that could have been a salve to the wound that they were feeling. You understand? Like, so I didn't get, I was just desperately trying to, what can I do? How can I help her feel better? And there was absolutely nothing that I could have done. So she was in that state for quite a while. There were days in here where she was upset.
I was very annoying.
She was angry. Or did you experience anger?
Yes.
It was not all the time.
I was not all the time. Yeah, I mean, especially being born here in the States, everybody always looks forward to like celebrating. Oh my gosh, yeah, I did that for prom. I wore this for prom.
Watching other people the year before.
Yes, and then it's when you're in the States, everything's always competitive. Like we're very competitive here. So I remember like right before all this COVID thing happened, everybody was like, 2020 is the best year. It's the best year. Like if you're graduating 2020, you won. That's it. And then I remember the next year, everybody's like, look at 2020 now. Like, look at you guys.
So what they're saying is, so each year the idea is to outdo what the year before you did in terms of the activities.
We did. No one had a one like us.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, no one can top your year at this point. And so I remember as they're describing what happened, I remember like when they started grade 12, it was a big deal. So all of this would be new to me, and to her, but she's in the school system, so she would have seen all that happen for the years, the final year students each year before her group. And I remember the start of the school year, it was a big deal before she even got to school, because she was in the house getting some crown or the other ready because they turned up at school the first day with their crowns, and that's a tradition, and because listen, the whole idea is final year is supposed to be just the year, and I get it. I get it. So they didn't get to experience most of what final year is supposed to offer.
Right? They had to work up until March, and right after March and spring break, vibes. Just
I didn't get to vibe.
We did our schoolwork and then got all our GPA and credits, and then the pandemic.
No, we got to prepare for everything that we couldn't have. Yeah. We literally prepared for everything. We saw how the decorations were gonna look.
We picked out our themes for prom,
and then they're like, never mind. Never mind.
Okay.
You see, and I know that's a part of the challenge as well, what you just said. You prepared for all of those activities, because I remember there was fundraising taking place for months and months and months and months before, because they were going to show up and show out, right? So they were making sure that they were ready. What happened with those monies that were raised?
It went to the other class. It went to class of 2021. They got all of the money that class of 2020 raised towards their prom, their graduation. Did they go to Grad Bash? No. But all of everything that we made, they got it. They won.
Listen.
They won. End game. It was end game for them.
I remember also, you see, when it got to graduation time for 2021, like Kallysa literally said, I'm blocking everybody on social media. I don't want to see any posting about anything to do with the class of 2021 and their activities, because it still hurt.
Yeah, I'm bitter. I'm bitter.
Very bitter.
You're still bitter right
now.
I'm
mad.
2022 can get it too.
All of the years after, I don't want to hear about your prom. I know, I'm so annoyed.
So later on, when you have kids and your kids,
they're not going.
All of us have
they're the top person. New tradition.
Oh my goodness. So right. I am sitting here, and the more I listen and I process, I'm being seriously taken into the experience in a whole new way. I know that a big deal for you guys was the not getting the opportunity to walk across the stage at graduation.
It's a huge deal. That's something that we are literally hyped up for.
Yeah. That's like your end statement. Like,
Yeah.
that's the stamp of graduating. Like, if you walk across that stage, regardless of whether you're getting a diploma or a certificate,
You walked.
You walked,
Yeah.
and your parents were able to cheer for you and congratulate you, and everybody knew that those 12 years didn't go by for nothing. Like,
Yeah,
you
we finished.
You finished it. You finished strong, and you finished with your family and friends. And we didn't get that. We didn't get to finish with some family, and we didn't get to finish with
We didn't
our
get to
friends.
walk. We got our caps and gowns in the mail. We took pictures at our house and then sent the cap and gowns back. That's what we did.
Yeah.
My mom made it very special, but for other people, that's literally what we did.
Yeah, what did we do? Tell them what we did.
I had a photo shoot with my friends, thanks to my mother and my grandmother, the best.
Yeah, you see, again, that was us trying to see what do we do to at least take some of the sting out of the whole experience. And I love her friends because she is a proper social butterfly, unlike her mother.
No.
And it was good having the young people here. They were so happy to see each other.
What?
Because at that point you hadn't seen each other
for the whole time. Yeah.
So they showed up, and the front patio was it was in here, and then the front patio was converted. And listen, they went to they had a blast. They were so happy with each other. They were hugging and just so excited, and I was happy to be able to do that. And I'm sure that other parents also found other ways to try and take off some of the pain based on all the things that the students did not get to do, did not get to experience. And I'm happy that she has that memory and all the friends who were here that they had, because you see, if we had done the shoot with just her here, it still wouldn't have been the same, taking the photos in her gown, but she got to that. What we recreated at that point was the taking of pictures that we had done. Yes. That's what, but so at least they have those photos at this point.
True.
So
yeah,
let look at the bright side.
I'm grateful. It was amazing. I am so thankful. It was fun.
And share our pictures. So I'm happy. Cute graduation pics with our friends. All of them in their gowns. And I think it ended up being extended because some persons were at work or had to come a little later.
Yes, it was all day.
So it was, they had a grand time, and I think that I won as a parent like that.
Yeah,
yes. Right, and so, how to cope with the grief of missed opportunities? Because we've talked a lot about how they felt. Is there any other thing about how you felt about the whole experience that you want to share before we wrap with this episode of BTS Live?
I just wish a lot more people would understand where we're coming from. They don't see it as a big deal, and that hurts my feelings. I don't know about Kayla, but it hurts my feelings for them to invalidate our feelings just because it's not something that you deem as important doesn't make it any less important to us. If it was something we were looking forward to and it didn't happen, not because of something we did, it's still hurtful. And for the other classes to say, oh, it's not that serious, as they walk across the stage, what are you talking about?
As they get to experience the things
that we didn't.
Yeah.
I just wish people would be more mindful.
Okay. Anything from you, Kayla?
Yeah, she summed it up.
Summed it up. Well, we all need to be more mindful. I agree. And the fact is that even at 2 years later,
it doesn't feel like it.
It still hurts. But I know as it relates to now coping with the feelings of loss and grief, that one of the things that I will suggest to do to help is to talk to have a support system. Talk to your friends and your family about the experience and how you're feeling. It's like coping with any reason that you're feeling grief. So the style isn't necessarily different whether it's a loved one that you're grieving or your possessions or your health. Because listen, if your health is compromised, you grieve the loss of that as well, so some of the techniques they're largely the same. And a key thing with coping any loss or grief is having a support system, a good, strong support system, because it's important to be able to say to somebody, I feel this particular way about this experience.
And be seen and heard. That's the important part. You can say all you want, but if they're not acknowledging it, it's not doing anything. It's not helping. So
right. So that's the important thing to, as Kallysa said, not to invalidate somebody's feelings. So not because you don't see walking across the stage as being a big deal or attending grad bash or getting to just turn up at school for the last month and just walk around like kings and queens and you are, because all the schoolwork is done, and so they were robbed of that. So not because you don't see that as a big deal should you suggest to them that it wasn't a big deal. You're still here, and I know you have other people going, but there are greater things in life to be worried about. This is great too. Both things can be true at the same time.
They can correlate.
Yes. So it's for us to be mindful of the things that we say to people when they're grieving, right? It is so important. We have to be more gentle with our words and more understanding. And so even as a parent, that is information that I'm also saying to myself, because I am sure that there are things that Kallysa was experiencing over the whole not being able to do all of those things that I didn't get. So I think, did you say it on camera or was it before?
No, I didn't.
That's just trying to be kind. Where I said to her, you're new to the US, fairly new. These things that isn't traditional for us Jamaican. I don't get it. I don't know if I said what's the big deal like that, but I know that is what my general attitude.
She was very perplexed that I was perplexed.
Because I couldn't understand. I genuinely, and I'm saying it, listeners, viewers and listeners, that I didn't get it. I really, really didn't. The extent, the depth of the feeling of loss, because it's not something that would have been to me. I'm not used to it, and so if I had been born here and been in the system or even went to high school here, I am sure that I would probably perceive it the way you did, because I would have gone through that and had the experience. But for me, it just felt like, so I dropped the ball there, because in other words, I wasn't suggesting that she shouldn't feel the loss, It was the intensity that I couldn't understand. But I get it. I get it now. So it might feel like 2 years later, but I fully get it. And this is why I'm saying to every parent, guardian, parent figure, just the support system of adults around our young people. And even though, because look how long after we're having this conversation and you see the pain and the sadness in the ladies' faces. I know and hear it in their voices. This is not something that I think that they're ever going to ever talk about and not feel
anger,
anguish. Anguish. All right, because I was about to say, I'm hoping that 10 years you're not still angry.
I think I'm still going
oh my goodness, I hope not. Kayla, you think you're going to feel angry 10 years from now? You will.
Definitely. You have to think about it, like I said before, it's unfinished. Like anybody you think of, like
to this day.
If you're reading one of your favorite books ever, and you're looking for that build up, you're looking for that climax that the ending is going to be the best ever, and everybody's talking about it. Everybody in the world has already experienced it. You're just like, yes, I want to read it. I want to experience this too. And then you get to the end of the book and there's nothing.
No, you don't even get the book. We don't get the end of the book. This is what happened, by the way.
Yeah, it's unfinished. It's like there's nothing there. It's just like, okay, all right. I guess I'm moving on to the next chapter.
But you can have this book.
Yeah, and then they give the book on to somebody else, and they get to see the real ending and their own perspective. And then now I'm just making up scenarios in my head of what it could have been, and then like you said, 10 years from now I'm gonna feel anguish Anguish, because it's like I'm still, 10 years later, I'm still thinking about what I could have experienced with other people who probably do or do not get the situation that I'm in.
So every time it comes up for the rest of your life, you're gonna feel that sting.
Yes, it's gonna feel like just so confusing.
I get it. You see, and that's a great. You know what? All right, I got it even more deeply than I did at the beginning, because what I'm hearing feels like coping with the loss of my mother. It is an ongoing thing, and most days I'm okay. And then there are days that it just creeps up on me, the whole, this can't be real feeling. Almost a year later, it still happens. And I repeatedly tell people that I know that I will never not miss my mother. There will be no time where the thought will come in my head, or somebody has a conversation with me about her, that I don't feel the sting of that missing her, or like feeling like I was like I was robbed. So what you described sounds just like that, and this is why I really want us to understand that this is grief, right? And the thing with grief in general is that we have to go through the process. And what I know for sure is that for most of our students who were robbed of that final year experience, that they have not gotten the kind of support or recognition that they were grieving, and the support to help them work through it. That's what I'm processing at this point. That if we didn't hold space with you and for you, to help you to acknowledge that, listen, you lost something immensely significant and you are grieving, and what can I do to support you and to help you go through it the same way we would if you had lost a loved one. It means that 2 years later, you're still stuck at the place that you were at the beginning, because you have not started to truly process it, to learn to live with it differently.
And they thought that they really helped us push through. They gave us free donuts for a dozen donuts with 2020 on it. What else did we get?
I mean, we got speeches by so many celebrities who completely understood our experiences.
Yeah,
even though they didn't. They didn't. So, it's nice knowing that a lot of people knew what we went through, but what is that?
Like, knowing something, this is where I'm reminding everybody. Knowing something and experiencing something are two very different things. Knowing something, we can all read something or hear about something and know it. Living it, living through it. So the truth is, I will never fully understand how you both feel. But I'll come close to it though, because I've now lost my mother, and I understand that feeling of just being bereft, so I can kind of identify, but even then, I don't get it. Because I didn't have that lived experience. I didn't. Is there anything that you guys as a group could, what could have been done differently for you? I was hoping, that your school really
would have tried hard for the graduation.
Yes, because I remember that some schools in Miami, so we're in Fort Lauderdale. They put something in place that allowed those students to walk across the stage. And I was crossing my fingers on my 10 toes to say that Broward County would have done likewise, and Broward didn't. And I felt your anguish.
And some of the schools did, but our school, they said we're gonna do it on the TV, and that was it. And
they didn't even try. It's like, and then it was the thought that you see so many other schools
doing it. It can be done.
It could be done, and they just didn't try. And they're just okay,
on to the next.
Right? Like, you get your picture on the TV. Let's be grateful about that. Our 5 seconds of fame.
Yeah, literally.
So you don't feel like the school really tried? The school,
no, they did not try.
They didn't try at all.
Because they didn't understand.
No.
They were just happy to end the school year too.
It's over with.
Wow. Viewers, do you have young people in your life who were final year students in 2020 who were then impacted by the pandemic? Have you had the conversation with them? Did you have the conversation or any version of the conversation with them then? If you didn't, it's not too late.
It's not.
It's not. It's 2 years later that I'm having this conversation like this with Kallysa at this point and Kayla. So I am inviting you to talk to your young people. Well, they're now proper young adults. But as you see, based on the conversation and the emotions that they've expressed, that the talk would still be useful for them to be acknowledged and for us to really say, I hear you, I see you, I feel your pain. This has been BTS Live, Loss and Grief, and we've been talking about the grief that's associated with missed milestones. I've been talking to my wonderful daughter, Kallysa, and one of her best friends, Kayla, and they have been amazing. Don't you agree?
Yeah.
Ladies.
We've been great.
Yeah, we did
Yes,
that.
yes, you have been.
Thanks, we did.
That.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this has been great. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please stay tuned for the gems coming up with Kallysa and Kayla for this month's BTS Live on missed opportunities and the grief associated with it. I am Kadene Chambers, and thank you so much. See you next week.